Hey, welcome back to another episode of Automation Ladies. I am one of your hosts, Nikki Gonzalez. I feel weird introducing myself every time, but I realize that my favorite creators do that in every video. Like, I guess just in case it's somebody's first time watching and I shouldn't be full of myself and think everybody knows who we are. So yeah, I'll say that. My name is Nikki, and thank you for joining us today. And my co-host, Allie G, is here with me. Allie, you want to say hi?
Hi, guys. Great week. It's not. There's not enough sun. Seattle sucks.
Otherwise, great week. I'm assuming also great week work-wise and lots of other things. I got a little bit of sun this morning here in Houston. I'll be grateful for that. And we have our guest today is Alex Poole from Mast Owl Technologies. Alex, welcome to Automation Ladies.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're very stoked to have you on. We had a minute to chat before we got on air, and we have a lot of sort of connections in common and have been in some of the same circles over the last couple of years, but haven't actually met before. So this is exciting. We get to know Alex on the show. And I will give a shout out to Michael Wida, who is with Mast Owl, that came to OT SCADACon, and a longtime supporter of the show, as well as our mutual friend, Sam Janes. Shout out to Sam if you listen.
And
the fun music that gets us pumped up for every episode. That's Sam. So yeah, Alex, this has been a little time coming. I appreciate you guys reaching out after OT SCADACon, and we are just kind of getting back to recording now for season 5. So we're super stoked to have you here. And I guess I'll just start with our first standard question. Can you tell us your story? How the heck did you get to be here with Mast Owl Technologies?
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good question. And I definitely appreciate Mike and the work he does for us and what he did kind of moving this forward. So Mike and I've known each other for a couple of years now. I hired him over at Gray and he followed me here. So my story, how I got into industrial automation. I was talking to Allie a minute ago. I grew up in Southwestern Michigan. I got into programming young. I hated winter. I hated cold. And so getting inside and being able to do something to keep my brain stimulated was kind of what started my programming journey. Now, back then, we didn't have computer science minors or majors. They weren't necessarily as prevalent as they are now. So I got a degree in electrical engineering. As part of that, I worked in an automotive industrial manufacturer where you made interior parts for cars. So I had this industrial manufacturing background with an electrical engineering degree, but a love for programming. And that's really what led me into industrial automation, was combining all those things. I knew I wasn't going to go work at Microsoft or Google and sit in a cubicle and write code for hours. That wasn't me. The industrial manufacturing piece was a huge draw for me. So being able to combine those things is what got me into industrial automation a long time ago. I spent the first half of my career in automotive, moving around Michigan, got to Tennessee for a little bit, doing industrial manufacturing for automotive paint, assembly, body weld, I guess whatever happens to make a car. That was my first half of my career. I got into material handling when I worked for Dematic, got into food when I went out to FMC Food Tech in California. Started my own company once before. That's what got me to Central Kentucky. Started Blue Star Automation back in the late 2008, 2009. And that's what got me to Central Kentucky, where I am now. And that company closed and couldn't quite make it. And got into a project here destroying chemical weapons, which was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
There's some talk about safety requirements.
Right.
Right. So that project was closing. It was a 15, 20-year project and they were about done. They destroyed all the weapons here in Central Kentucky, but my wife and I wanted to stay. That's when I went to work for Gray Solutions, worked there for a little while, and then decided that it was time for me to move out on my own. Went back to some of the same investors we had used when it started up the first time. They had been a little more successful. Pockets were a little deeper, and we've got MOT rolling. So yeah, I guess that's the quick version of how I got where I am.
Yeah, very cool. I love the fact that you went out on your own, and then, situations change. Companies don't always make it. Even if they make it, sometimes they continue, or circumstances change, or priorities change. We just saw a post this morning from one of our OT SCADACon attendees. He, had bought a kit and all these things. And then he just said, hey, I need to sell this kit. I'm selling my house, change of priorities. So I don't know what the situation in there is, but, life is complicated and you never know what business life, right? And I love hearing the fact that, you kind of did that. You went and worked for Gray, and then now you're doing it again. And some of those same relationships they carry, right? I think if you carry yourself with integrity, success doesn't necessarily mean, oh, you succeeded at that one thing and became a millionaire or whatever that goal is that people see as success. Being able to go back to the same group of people and work with them again, to me, personally, that's a huge sign of success. Whatever other things people want to measure.
The contacts I've made over the years, and we talked about Mike, we talked about Sam, but, I made a lot of good, not just friends, but professional contacts, just at Gray Solutions. There's some great engineers or great people to work with there. But this investment team that I'm working with here, I've known one of these guys I met him in my first job out of college. And so it's been 30 years. In fact, his daughter, who I've known him longer than his daughter has known him, works for us now. So, it's cool how that kind of stuff all goes. Like, I remember when she was born and now she's leading my marketing department. So
that's really cool. We actually met also, Sarah Larson. She works at Rockwell, but we met her last year when she was at ePlan.
Yep.
She's an engineer that grew up to be a marketer, if I can put it that way. But one of the marketing folks over at Gray, she remembers from when, she was a little girl. And it's a small world within automation in particular, and the systems integrators community, if I can call it that, right? We now have, you have industry associations. And you mentioned a little bit before the recording started that, one of the things that you've seen change maybe in the last 5 to 10 years is sort of that networking within the integrator community.
Yeah.
You want to tell us a little bit more about that? And
I think it's forced.
It's forced.
I think it's forced by the boomers retired. We have no choice.
Do you think it's by choice or by force, or what's your take on it, Alex?
I think that it's the little bulls, and I'm not hedging that answer because I think the technology expands so fast. There's so much new stuff out there. You can't keep up. So you're forced to talk to others and lean on others because, what I might be good at isn't necessarily what somebody else is good at, right? And so we have to talk to each other. And I think the need for automation is so great that it cuts down that competitive wall. Like, nobody's losing.
Yeah.
We might bid against each other on certain projects, but we talked about this with the conversation with Walker a little bit. Tomorrow we could be bidding together on something, right? We could go into a project. When I was at Dematic, we bid a project with the U.S. government that they wanted to award. It was 2 sites. And basically they needed one company's conveyor experience and our ASRS experience. So we took the lead on one project and subbed the conveyor to the other company. And then on the other project, they took the lead and subbed the ASRS to us.
Yeah.
And that was 20 years ago, but that was so unheard of. And it was so difficult because we were competitors. We only thought of the other team as a competitor. And now that's all gone away, or a lot of it's gone away. You still run into it. But I think the fact that there's so much work out there, even in a slow time, like some might say right now, is that it eliminates that real hard fought bitterness that I think we used to see. So I think it's forced because you have to. There's so much to learn and so much to know that it's really hard to know it all. And
to be the best at every single thing.
Yeah, you can't. You can't. Cybersecurity versus, and then you get into some different communication protocols, or you get into, some instrumentation that there's one person that's the expert on it, and you kind of got to work with that guy.
You don't have to, but working with him is going to be the most profitable way forward. Like, you can go ahead and struggle it on your own, but you're not going to make the money that you could.
Right. You just hand it to them, have it done, but you're out of this faster. You're on to the next thing faster. Customers happier, things like that.
Yeah, and you're moving more projects through. You're getting more goals hit with the customer, which probably means more jobs with that customer on both sides of the aisle, right? Depending on
it, just looks better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Allie, you've been doing a little bit of
happy customer is good.
You've had a couple of full.
No, I'm doing it entirely. Like, my company, I would say my company does more than half of the work outsourced. We can't do it. We have a lot of it, but I can't afford 20 people on the W-2. Because of the payroll taxes and everything else I need. So do I need 20 people to do what I'm doing right now? Yes, I do. My company does need 20 different people. It's government work, state government work. And so as much as I want, people come to me and they're like, you could be making more money. And I'm like, I know, but it's not as simple as that. And so we're trying to do a game plan so that over time, when it makes sense, we can start adding those other people. But I only have 2 employees. I'm an employee of PCE and I have 2 other employees that are engineers, and that's it. All of my finance stuff, accounting, HR, even the subject matter experts that are helping my engineers are outsourced. And then there's other engineers that are outsourced. Sometimes I'll just give another company an entire work order and just say, go ahead and work this. And then we just make some money on it, but they need to close it out. And so I like that more because that's faster. But at the same time, I want to develop my people. So I do a little bit of halvesies where I'll pay someone to mentor them on their work. So they'll do the bulk of the work, but I'll give some subject matter expert some bulk of hours to make sure that what they produce doesn't suck. Not that they suck or anything, but yeah, I can afford to have help. Yeah. Sometimes I can afford someone to help me. And sometimes I'll help them myself. I want to not do engineering as much as I need to be doing. And so in order to do that, I need to have help from everywhere. And I don't have super experienced engineers, but I have really good help to build them up over time. And then eventually add those key players that I need because I can't afford the cream of the crop, right? Controls people are not cheap. And then, you're going to have to spend money to get them to be better over time. I've been struggling there. But since conception of PCE, we have been almost entirely subbing it out. Contract work has been a massive part of us getting anything done for the last 2 years. And probably for the next couple years, it's going to be the same.
So Alex, having done this a couple times now, is the work that you're doing now similar to your past company, or is it completely different? What are you guys focusing on now? What's Mast Owl? If I were to ask, kind of what's your calling card for?
Well, that's a great question. So to tack on a little bit of what Allie was saying, I mean, that was one of the challenges with the first time we did this was we couldn't afford to hire what we needed.
Yeah.
The industry wasn't the tools didn't exist to share information as well. The internet was there, but it wasn't what it is, 15 years later. And
SharePoint.
Yeah. Or LinkedIn or, just any way to reach out for help. And so being able to build out a team was one challenge. Now, so to answer that question, what I tried to do the first time around and what I'm really trying to do here is lean into the fact that we're good at automation. Now, in a lot of systems integrators, we want to talk about, we do distillery, we do pet food, we do material handling, we do cosmetics, what industry, what vertical. Like my marketing team, it took a lot for me to finally get them to understand I don't want to talk about verticals because what we do is write code, design panels, build panels, install panels, commission code. That's what we do. The model for this started way back when I was in Tennessee. One of the first jobs they gave me was to take this. It was a front bumper for a Chevy van that they'd been making forever. It's just this gray, simple utilitarian van, utilitarian fascia, a bunker fascia. And this guy'd been hand painting it for 20 years. And they wanted to put a robot in to paint it. I said, okay. So I went and grabbed him. I said, hey, you got to help me. He's like, I don't know anything about robots. I said, great. I don't know anything about painting. Let's work together and figure this out. And we did. We got through it very quickly. We got a good program. And now the guy still had a job. We didn't eliminate his job. He just had to push a button now instead of stand all day bringing paint to. So that model is what I try to do going forward. We built out a team. We call it our solution success team. And their job is to go interview the customer and understand. They're the experts at making dog food. I'm not. They're the experts at making bourbon. I'm not. So let's go interview them and understand how they do what they do, translate that into words that my core engineers can understand. And then we'll go design a panel, write code, whatever we got to do to emulate that process. That's why that question it makes me laugh a little bit because it's such a long answer to it's not food and beverage. It's not the 2-word answer that most people expect when they ask me that question, but we're programmers. It's what we are. It's what we do. It's where most of us have spent a lot of time in plants. We know how to walk through a plant. We know how to identify where we can help with the process. But what we don't know is there's the specifics of their process, the details of their process. So we built a team to help us.
And we've seen every factory we go to the same hardware. We see the same controllers, the same inside of we're like, That's why verticals don't make sense. And I've never liked that question because they're like, what's your niche though? What are you good at? And I'm like, PLCs. And they're like, no, but like what industry? And I'm like, I don't know, like 6 different industries. It doesn't matter. They're exactly the same. The way that I do the work that I do, like take a IO list or even before an IO list and turn it into a control panel and turn it into commissioning. That doesn't change from industry to industry at all. And so it's just a lot of plug and play. So it's like, why are you making me tell you what my niche is? It's an old school way of thinking, I think. And there's, at least for our industry, just because of the nature of so much overlap, because every industry doesn't have its own Allen Bradley. Allen Bradley is it for all the industries. Or maybe in some cases they use a little more or a little less of something, but across the board, they don't care where the power supply comes from. There isn't a power supply for food and bev that's different from a 24-volt DC power supply for any other that's all the same. So when I started seeing it, I was like, oh my God, I will have a job forever. Once I started seeing the same things in the panels in different places, I was like, oh my God, I'm so good. I was like, okay, I know I've seen this stuff before. I know what that is. I know what the terminal blocks are. I know what relays are. I know what contactors are. And all that is used all across the board. They're just hooking up PLCs and IO. It's the same IO. It's the same controllers all across everything. Like, everything in the panel and even in the field, the sensors themselves are the same. And the motors. So we have jobs forever, which is a baller.
Well, I use this a lot. My valve doesn't know what's going through it. As a general statement, I'm opening and closing a valve. I don't know if it's dog food, coffee, fluid, water. I don't know. You just tell me when you want that valve open. I ask this question a lot too. What's it doing when we're troubleshooting? What's it doing that it's not supposed to? What's it not doing that it's supposed to? That's really what you have to answer. I don't, well, the XYZ isn't getting where, what's it doing that it's not supposed to? What's it doing? Like, we can fix it. It's the same question every time. And I'm not to say that every process is the same, not to say, but when you break it down to finite elements that you have to get into automation, you get right down to it. I used to say this a lot. So the core process engineers at Gray Solutions didn't like this, but I can't program TBD. Like when we're writing code, there has to be an answer to every question. I don't know what that timer needs to be. Well, me neither. So you're the process guy. Give me a number. I can fix it in the field, but I can't leave it blank now.
Pick something.
Or I'll put 10 million in there because I don't know. And when you get down to that level of finite,
it's 10 seconds, right?
Right. It's when you get to that level of finite detail,
or 10 hours.
What, 10 million. When you get to that level of finite detail,
millisecond,
a lot of the big picture stuff goes away. Like a lot of the big picture stuff, which is what 90% of the plant is worried about. 95%. The automation engineers, we're down in that level going, look, I need to know how to open and close this valve. That's what I need to know. I need to know when this photoite turns on, what do you want me to do with it? And when you break it down that simple, it does mean you can fit into almost any industry. You just really have to know how to do the interview, get the information out of process experts. Like you say now, there's a job. There's my team. Half the team that works at Max Office Technology come from industrial automation. Did that on purpose. And when I tell them it's on track to become a $400 billion industry, they're like, that's huge. I'm like, right. I just want 1/400th of it and we're good. And that's what I mean. There's so much work. Throw a dart, go 10 miles around it, you can find plenty more. To your point, it's just everything. And it's just going to get bigger.
Yeah, it continues to surprise me when people kind of carry that scarcity mindset in the industry, that there isn't enough work. And of course, it is cyclical and there are, more investments in some cycles than others. But I don't know what sets apart those that just see all the work all around them and are willing to go after it versus those that think, if I don't get this contract, there's not going to be another job. Or if you get this contract, I'm not going to get a job, that sort of thing.
So I struggle with a behavior in the business development side of what I call order takers. And it starts with marketing, but the second phase is business development. If your BD team just wants to sit around and answer the phone and take orders, then they're going to feel there's a scarcity.
Yeah.
Because 90% of the people that really need automation help are so busy, they don't have time to sit at the desk and start calling people. And I'm not saying everybody that's seeing a downturn in the market or saying that there's a downturn in the market is this way. But if you want your phone to ring and you're just going to sit here and answer the phone and then think you've got work, yeah, your phone might stop ringing.
Mhm.
But if you're out there looking for work, you're out there, the first person I
Asking everybody.
yeah. And the first person I heard at Master Technology was marketing. The second person I heard was BD for a handful of reasons. One, I'm the engineer, so I was comfortable doing engineering, and I'm not a salesperson and I'm not marketing, but also because the first thing you got to do is go find the work, because you're not looking to find it. And you're right. You won't see it in that 10-mile radius. You won't see that there's a manufacturer right there on point at it that I'm sure has automation in their house now. We haven't even gone and knocked on their door yet because we're targeting other areas, but it doesn't mean we can't. It doesn't mean it's not there. So that's my opinion on why I think people view the market different, is they're not willing to find it. It's there. It's out there.
Yeah, but you bring up a good point, though. You do have to have a sales and marketing function if you don't want to be just at the mercy of whatever projects are brought to you. And I think some people, if they start their business based on existing demand from past customers or connections, they don't have that muscle to go out there and market themselves or to sell. And then it can be tricky if you don't think that your company needs that as an investment. I have seen or feel like in the industry, some companies, they don't really see marketing as the function that it should be. They often have a head of sales and marketing, and they really overload that person with way too much, or those couple people. They expect them to go to tons of trade shows every year and also be able to effectively, market themselves. And I mean, trade shows are great, and it's part of both the marketing and the networking side. I think even today, even more so than just marketing yourself, it's all about kind of strengthening those industry connections, both from marketing yourself as an employer, right? Marketing yourself as a potential partner to other companies. But I love to see that one sales and marketing person at a company that I know should have the budget to pay for to actually be marketing themselves, not just, oh, here's our latest white paper or data sheet. So is that something, have you always had that mindset, or is that something that changed with your second time around that you thought that was important to do early on?
So one of my best friends growing up, he went into industrial automation. He went out on his own, and he was a one-man show. And he wasn't doing what you were doing, Allie, with you subbing out work, because this was back when it was a little harder to do that. Again, competition, all this in talk about. But he came to me one day and he said, "Here's the biggest problem I have, Alex. I'll do a project. I'll be on the site for 3 months, and then that's done. And next thing, now I got to put on my marketing and sales hat and go find more work." So that started the spark of, I'm like, oh, if to really do this at scale, you've got to have focused marketing and BD people so the engineers can go out and do the work, and then you don't have that lull. When we did it the first time around, a good friend of mine, there were 3 of us, and I was the engineering arm, and this other guy was doing the marketing and sales arm, and he admits freely he wasn't very good. Unfortunately, we realized this and hired a very good salesperson as we ran out of money. And we just started to get some traction. In fact, I remember the call. We had an opportunity to do this one project, but we were so upside down. Our concern was if we took the down payment from that guy, we were going to use it to finish other projects. And we were being, what I would consider being very close to fraud. We were getting very close to taking people's down payment to work on other projects, knowing we couldn't finish the original project. Right.
I've had that happen to me on a contractor business, like residentially. And it is, a good call, I guess.
And we couldn't do that. Yeah. I said, we can't do that. We can't. And what we realized there was the strength of a good sales team. So that's why we've done what we did. And that partner of mine then is one of the major investors now. And that's what I told him. I said, look, finances, we got to go at this different. And we've got our largest budget right now because of the size of us is our marketing budget. We're targeting a lot of shows. We go to a lot of shows. We have 2 booths that we fly around and put at different shows around the country. Like, we are heavily invested in marketing. Part to get our name out there. Like, people need to recognize our name. I tell marketing soft on the ground. When our BD team starts calling, I want people to say, "Oh, we've heard you. You've seen that name before."
It can make a huge difference. And that does take a little bit of time. So you can't expect that, your first time around, people immediately are going to send you a PO, right? But all that work, it builds up to both people thinking of you next time they have a project because they remember you, and or when you do call, right? Because you want to be pushing, you want to be in front of people's have some mind share, right? When these projects come along, then having that name recognition can be really, really helpful. And I think that's something that Allie's done a really good job of. Way more people have heard of PCE or process and controls engineering or herself than I would say, most companies her size, especially because she's not, the industry that she's in, that sort of thing, like that could be completely quiet. And that's a tricky thing that we have in our industry as well, right? Not being able to talk about our customers. We have NDAs with a lot of projects that we work on. So even if you have all those wonderful case studies in your toolbox, a lot of times they don't pack as much of a punch when you have to redact half the information.
Right. Right. We have a customer that we're talking to right now and he wants references. And I'm like, well, I'll see what I can do. But, part of it is there's some NDA there. Or, one of the other challenges, big picture with engineering is once you solve the problem, it doesn't seem like it was that big of a problem. So you have this one case study that this person came to you with a problem and you're like, oh man, think about all the work we did to solve that problem. Then when you'd explain the solution, you're like, oh, that seems like it was pretty easy. And so again, back to losing that punch and having that punch of, no, this was a phenomenal thing my team did, but once it's solved, it seems easier, right? When you're building the Hoover Dam, there's this huge thing at the end that everybody looks at and goes, look at how much work that was. When you're writing code, you don't really get into the details of that microsecond decision that has to be made consistently every time in order for this facility to run right. Yeah, it just lacks the punch sometimes, but that's part of the job.
I mean, that's kind of like the how the sausage is made. I found this out the hard way with podcasting too. I thought this would be easy. It's really not. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that I never knew about. And now when we talk to people about, they want us to come out, they're like, hey, can you come do something with us? And we're like, yes, okay, here's everything that's going to be involved. People are surprised because they say, oh, well, you make it look easy, or it just, isn't it simple? You just show up and you record something. And it's like, no, all the work that went into that behind the scenes, you don't really know because you're not talking about that in the final content. But that's what enables it to get done.
Anybody that starts their own anything, podcast, business, anything, again, having gone through it, I've been through a handful of startups outside of the two that I was directly primary on. There's a lot.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot.
I know that, but so I started out working for my dad in his small business. So I saw that from the inside and from the family of the founder side. And I really... I'm surprised I didn't turn myself off from the whole entrepreneurship thing altogether because I know it's not easy. And sometimes it's not successful. Sometimes you don't end up walking away with some sort of big success, right? Sometimes your success is being able to get out from under it intact or, not to mention the impacts that you can have on your family, on your health. But I guess I have that trait that makes me also perpetually be able to be optimistic about being able to do things. Because I think also that if you can't do that, if you can't gloss over a little bit that it's going to be really hard, you probably won't do a lot of those hard things.
I think so. Recently, I brought on a guy to lead our business development team. And I made a point to him at one point when we were interviewing somebody. I said, look, it's a different beast to interview somebody to come into a startup because it's startup. And some people love it and some people hate it. And some people don't have an opinion. But when you tell them it's hard, I think what goes through their head is, oh, well, I've done hard things before, but it's hard in a very different way. Because to that, it's the mental piece. It's the had a bad day. That doesn't mean you're going to fail. And being able to walk through that and get to the other side of it and not have it affect your out.
Not spiral. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I'm going to say this, my wife and I were married the first time I started business and the hardest part was closing it. It was devastating to close that business. And when I came to her and said I was going to do it again, she was 100% of it. Like there was no balking. There was no, are you sure? It was like, okay, whatever you're going to do, let's do this. And I think that's a huge piece that entrepreneurs specifically miss is you talk about family. It's hard on the family. It's the big deal to the family. And you got to have that support. You can't, I can't walk out of this room frustrated and have her going, I told you so. I knew it was going to be hard. What do you that's what leads to real success. You talk about success is measured in a lot of different ways, but that part of it is I don't know how anybody does it.
That's mental torture if your family's telling you that yeah.
I don't know how you do it, right? It's hard in ways you never thought it was going to be hard. I'll say that. Like, it's just, when we closed that first one, I went and worked at this project here in Richmond, Kentucky, destroying chemical weapons. And I told everybody it was semi-retirement. It had some challenges, but I was not initially, even at the end, I wasn't primary on anything. I led a small team. I was responsible for some very, very life-altering decisions, but compared to running a business, it wasn't hard. And that was the longest job I've ever had, because it took me that long to get my head back into jumping in and doing leadership again. Like, it was pretty hard, but I'm back at it again. So whatever that is about.
Resilience. Have you
Absolutely.
taken some steps, or is there anything that's different in your life now about, like you said, taking on a leadership position? Is there anything that you feel like you've learned as a leader that you could either give tips to other people, or just from the perspective of, like, do you do more leadership training, or, is there anything that changes your perspective on being a leader now versus back then the first time around?
Yeah. I mean, so Simon Sinek, he's got a lot of stuff on YouTube, and he talks about finding your why. And honestly, when I started MOT, this buddy of mine that I've known forever, he asked me why. He's like, why? Why are you doing it? Because he knew I didn't want to. He knew for 15 years. I said, I'm not doing that. I told Walker asked me one time, you want my job? I said, no. So, this guy's like, why then? If you saved her forever, you're never doing it again. Why are we talking about this? I think that's a big one, because there's a book out there called Turn the Ship Around, and it talks about middle management. I started reading it when I was at Gray to help with some of the struggles I was having with my supervisor. And one of the things it calls out in there is, as a leader, you're going to pour your heart and soul into people, and they're going to hate you for it. And it goes back to still find your why. and again, not to overquote Simon, but if you're not doing it for the reward of whatever, if you know why you're doing it, just keep running into that. Keep grabbing that. I'm not doing this because I want so-and-so to think I'm a great boss. I'm not doing this for the money. I'm not. Anybody that's come to me in the last 5 years and said they want it, because we promoted a lot of people to managers when I was at Gray Solutions. We grew so fast, I had to build managers. And I always asked them why. And I always why do you want to do this? Because if it's, I think it's just next to my career, that's not going to get you through. If it's, I want more money, that's not going to get you through. And so that would be my first and kind of core piece of advice, is know why you're doing it and keep leaning into that. And if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, you're just not going to be happy. Like, you're not going to be, it's not going to be what you want. So.
Yeah. It's something that, as I've matured in my career and gotten to know more about myself, I've started to, you can be more clear on your why and really realistic about whether something really fits your why or not. I think early on in your career, like you said, you're kind of conditioned to just, that's the next step. That's the next thing I should be doing. That's what, everybody and my parents and, think that I should do next. Like, for me, it was people management. I've had so many people tell me over there, oh, you'd make so much more money if you're a manager. Like, why aren't you managing people yet? It's like, I'm in my late 30s now, and I've held those positions, and I just didn't feel like it wasn't what I wanted at the time. I wasn't ready. I was still, I felt this pull to be an individual contributor. Like, I just want to do my thing and add my value. But that's
because we're not bossy people. We don't want to tell everybody what to do. We just want them to do it.
Right. Well, there's that. I tell people this too. The biggest transition from moving from programming to human beings is when I find a bug in software, it's done, fixed.
Yeah.
95% of the time, once I find the bug, I can fix it. Sometimes it takes a little bit of tweaking to make sure you get, but with human beings, once you figure out the problem, you just get started.
Yeah.
Now it's constant coaching and reinforcement and adjustment. And like, I told you not to do that anymore. But it's a different challenge.
It's not like giving the machine instructions and then the machine is changing on your direction.
Right.
There's a support group for us.
There was something else that came up in that conversation.
I would join a support group with you.
Leadership support groups. Yeah. Well, one of the things, again, Walker did a lot of good things at Gray Solutions. I know we talked a little bit about this, and we started this there. I don't know where they've gone with it, but I've done it at MOT, a version of it. And it's that there is a development path after a certain point that leads into people management or IC, individual contributor. And the salary ranges are equivalent, because what I really want people to realize is there's value of being an individual contributor.
Yeah.
Right. There's value in moving up and becoming an SME and being an expert in your field and bringing that to the company. And I want to reduce that stigma of, well, that must be the next step, right? You don't have to manage people if it's not where you're drawn to. If that's not your why, if that doesn't fulfill you, you're not help. It's not beneficial for the company for people to be in
Right.
that position that don't like it. So I want to give credit where credit is due. Is a conversation I had with Walker. I know he started down that path. I don't know where that ended at Gray Solutions because I left before that happened. But I took a version of that and built it out at MOT. And, again, people came to me and were like, why are we doing it? We're 4 people. Why are we worrying about this? And I said, because it's going to be important. That one of the people we interviewed said, what's my progression? What's my path look like here? And we had it all built out. We were able to display. So I think Nikki mentioned individual. I think it's important that, especially when you're dealing with engineers, like engineers don't want to think they have to manage people. Some of them aren't very good at managing people, and it's okay to be an SME. Yeah. Managing people is hard. It's a hard thing.
I like people, but that's part of the problem.
And I think I
want people to like me.
My wife corrects me, but I say this a lot. I don't like people, and I think I'm decent at managing people because, again, they can hate me. I've said this. I've used this as motivation. I'm like, you all have to get along with each other. If the only thing you bond on is that I'm a jerk, then bond on that. Like, if the only thing you guys have in common is that I'm a pain in the butt to work for, then great. Have that in common, bond on it, and get to be a team and go get the job done. But yeah, I don't worry too much about people liking me because
that's my biggest problem. Is like I want them to, and I need to let that go completely. Yeah, I'm working on it. Yeah,
it's hard.
Yeah,
It's
all
hard.
the time.
And I would recommend that book. Turn the Ship Around. It gets a little slow in the back half, but he's right. Your job is to care about everybody that works for you. I had someone in a leadership role at a specific company one time say to me, he said on a leadership meeting call, he goes, yeah, we have to act like we care about this people. And I was like, no, we have to care about these people. Like, there's a difference between acting
they're
like
going to know you don't actually.
And it led to some problems.
So
yeah,
what is your why with MOT now?
This sounds all fluffy, but I will answer it. So I think that there's a lot of really, really smart, good, and by good, I mean morally strong, morally correct people in the industrial automation space. I think there's some good salespeople. I think there's operational people. I think there's good HR people. And I want to build a place where they can come do a very good job and be comfortable doing it. That's why I'm doing this.
And follow their values.
Yeah. We have a set of what I call foundational tenets at MassDowell. And every time I send out any type of direction, it starts with, you will follow the tenets first. Anything else that we do from there is based. Though I say this 2 a.m, you're trying to get a machine running. If you follow the tenets, you don't get fired. Like, we may talk about a better way to do it tomorrow, but if you have to make a decision in the middle of the night and you can't get advice, follow the tenets, you'll be fine. They will put you in a position. And I was tired of seeing stuff in the industry where it was work 100 hours. Here's your $200 bonus and be glad you have a job.
Yeah.
I don't think that industrial automation needs to run that way. Could be wrong, but I'm probably not. So
if you're wrong,
we're
we're
going to build
wrong.
a group together.
We'll all be wrong together. We can
There you go.
in the Wrong Together Club.
I mean, we've heard this, right? Take care of the people, they'll take care of the customers. That it's been said. It's people have built companies on it. Heck, Gray Construction, the original Gray company was built on that. That Gray family is very much fans of take care of people in their core values. They don't talk about profit. They talk about taking care of each other. And I said, we can build that. We can do that. So that's why I do. That's why every morning, no matter how frustrated, in fact, 90% of the times I'm frustrated is because I'm like, look, I'm trying to help you get past this. Like, you're looking at this problem right here, but if you look past it, you'll see that there's a future. There's a solution that's bigger.
I think that's a hallmark of some good leadership because, people bring a lot of baggage with them if they've been around a while.
Yep.
whether that's organizational culture they've gotten used to elsewhere or ways of working. I think also before we were all connected, like you were saying earlier on there just weren't all the tools to network with other integrators and find out who's good at what and reach out real quick to see who has availability and all those sorts of things. Like you would have had to be local or part of some sort of chamber, network back then. And now you can do that on LinkedIn, or you can do that through CSIA, or you can do that through, there's a number of different, whether it's industry associations or we've got SMEs that, we can reach by Teams or Slack or WhatsApp or whatever. For us, OT Datacon is one of those communities that has, we've been able to pull resources from and vice versa. And we were a little bit surprised that people, not that we should have been, but that people that didn't know us at all bought tickets to this thing. And one of them, I had a meeting with him afterwards and he said, yeah, it was really good, but I kind of noticed that it seemed, and he used this word, incestuous. He's like, all the speakers, they all do business together all of the time already. And I was like, well, to a point, that is true. All the speakers were part of our network somehow, but most of them actually didn't know each other at all, except for, I'd say, like Josh and Caleb. A couple people had worked together in the past. But what did happen is we put them together in a group chat, like maybe 3 or 4 months before the event. And they did business together on their own ahead of time before ever meeting. Because one of those things, again, it was an avenue where they got to introduce themselves to other systems integrators.
They're still doing it.
They're still doing it. Yeah. They found out who does what and, hey, I have this project. I can't take it, or I don't want it, or I don't have the expertise. Do you? And we sort of saw that unfold in real time. And I think that that's really cool, but those have changed. So do you find that it's, maybe mindsets that you're having to change from just like what the industry used to be, or is that more personality thing?
We call it unlearning. We talk about that specifically. The more experienced, like we're interviewing a person right now. When I talked to the hiring manager, I said, hey, the thing I'm worried about is this person walking in the door and thinking we're going to do things the way we've always done them.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you talk to people, you interview them. One Mike White is a great example. And, I talked to him before I had him interview with the rest of the team to come on board. And I said, Mike, we're doing things a little bit differently here. We're structuring things a little bit. There's stuff that is traditionally in the automation engineer scope that we're moving into a different department. It's like, great. I love it. I agree. There's a problem there. But when you're in the meat, when you're there, it's still hard to remember, oh, that's somebody else's job. I need to go talk to that person. I've got a bigger team I've got to lean on. And so, it's a constant. The word term unlearning is what we use, but it doesn't matter if it's the automation engineer, the marketing team, the BD team, the HR team. I'm talking to Sydney. I'm like, hey, that's not how we're going to do this. And she's like, okay. Yeah. And she's open to learning, but it takes some conscious, focused, one of our foundational tenets, be intentional. It takes being intentional about your decisions every day. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? And just because we've always done it that way isn't an answer. And it's a thing. It's something we have to focus on every day. But that's okay. We're going to embrace that. We're going to accept it. We're going to do it. We're not going to run away from it. We're going to say, this is worth the ask. It's the juice is worth the squeeze, whatever you want to call it. It's worth working hard to do it this way. So that's what we're going to do.
You mentioned the tenants, and I really like this. As we scale, or as PCE scales, and I say we because I'm on the board, you got to get some process and you got to start to get that message, those core values out to the employees, right? Or the contractors, basically anybody that comes in touch with the company to understand the why, to be able to steer the ship together in the same direction. You kind of got to understand that. Can you tell us what your tenants are, and where did you come up with that idea? Is it like a specific framework that you use or operating system, or?
That one's a little, that's a little harder to how, or the where it came up with. So I'll tell you what they are. They start with be safe. Be safe is the one that everybody
thank you. Like, I don't know why that was, but good job. Thank you. But what we talk about is, it's not just, hey, you got to wear your PPE. Yeah.
It's emotional safety. One of the things we do as we do one-on-one check-ins with the team is, when's your last vacation? When's your next vacation? Just simple things because again, I don't want you work. There is going to be days where I have to tell people they have to work an 80-hour week. It's going to happen. You go to a job site, You're not going home that night anyway. You might as well work to get the project. I get it. Automation engineers work a lot of hours, but that doesn't mean that that's the expectation every day of your life. It might be the expectation periodically, but the flip side of that is true. I also embrace the idea that we're salaried, which means you get paid for 40 hours, whether you work 40 hours, 30 hours, or 50 hours. So I'm okay with people taking off. I'm way sidetracking. But part of this be safe is you're not allowed to take a half day vacation. If you need a half day, just don't come to work for that period. Like you don't have to take vacation. For first people, what do you mean you can't take a half day? Don't take vacation. You're salaried. If you need to take off at noon, take off at noon. Did your work get done? Yes. I promise you, there will come a day where you make up those hours. There will come a day in the automation industry where you have to work 44 hours in a week. Like it's gonna happen. So take off. That's all part of be
to
safe.
make this even longer. That was one of the things about my first job that really turned me off was it didn't matter if I was there until midnight the night before and on the weekend. If I was 1 minute late on the Monday morning for that 7:30 start time, that's what came up on my performance review. And it just
we don't do performance reviews either, but we have ways of giving feedback. The challenge I have is because you probably got talked to about it that day. And then it also came up on your performance review. I'm like, wait a minute. They only messed up once. Why are we talking about it twice? So we have some things in place to have that conversation. Now, if you do something good, I'm okay with talking about it. You did a good job. Well done. And then we'll bring it up in front of the company later and talk about the good job you did too. I'm okay with that. But we don't need to beat people up. But we'll come to that because that's part of attending.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So be safe is more than physical safety. And it also is part of how we do design.
Yeah.
Our designs have to be safe. Like that. Again, it's a simple thing, but e-stop rules, intrinsic safety. These are things that it has to be part of the design. They have to be. So let's be safe. Be respectful. Again, it falls into safety, but it's be on time for meetings, communicating so you're not going to be in meetings. You know what? Another thing that people really struggle with when we talk about unlearning, disagreement is respectful. If I trust you and I respect you, I can tell you when I think you're wrong and we're going to be fine. We respect each other enough to know that it's okay to disagree. There's depths to each of these. It expands, but that's be respectful. And it's everything from, it's not just make sure you say please and thank you. That's where you start. But we don't have a bereavement policy because if you tell me that your great grandmother passed away and you need to take time off, but I only say it's got to be immediate family, who am I to get into with that relationship? If I trust you to run a $10 million project, I could trust you to manage when you need to take bereavement. Like these are all levels of respect. These are all things where now again, if there's repeated problems, if you've got 14,000 relatives that all pass away and you have to take a week of time, you got to have a conversation. But that person's probably got problems in other areas of their performance. Like there's other things you have. And that's my problem with one of the things we're struggling as MaxDonald scales is people are tending to want to write policies and procedures for the lowest common denominator. And I'm like, no. The lowest common denominator keep work here. Let's write just because a person is doing something, we talk to them, we correct the behavior. If they continue to do it, they don't work here. We don't have to write a bereavement policy that says it's got to be X, Y, and Z person. Will that work when we're 5,000 people? I don't know. But that's where we're starting. So be respectful. Be intentional. I mentioned that one. This one is the one I always call the quiet tenant because you can't be safe if you're not intentional. You can't be respectful if you're not intentional. If you walk into a meeting to provide correction and you aren't intentional about it, you're going to lose your temper. We'll lose my temper. Be intentional. It supports the other tenants and it allows you to do your job. The last one, the fourth one is the one that's pretty interesting and it's be bold. It follows up with you're allowed to make mistakes. Try something new. The only wrong decision is to not make one. I say that a lot. Doing the wrong thing is way better than doing nothing. Being in control, even if it's wrong, is because we can fix that. Like we can fix a mistake. Also, if we embrace it, if we talk about it, if we allow you to make mistakes, then you raise your hand and you go, I screwed that up. I need help. Rather than sweep it under the rug. 6 weeks later, we find out something was broken, didn't get fixed, whatever it is. And be bold is not reckless. That's where, again, intentionality falls into it. If you have a plan, if you think about the risks, if you accept the risks, mitigate the risks, own the risk, but you're intentional about how you're being bold. So that's what those are our 4 foundational tenets: safety, respectfulness, intentionality, and boldness. That's what we built our company.
Man, you're making me want to come work for you. So you said this may not work with 5,000 people. What is your goal in terms of, and you've said scale as well before, which I think is important to note, that not everybody wants to scale and be a large company. Some of the SMEs that we work with at PCE, and some of the companies like partners that I partner with at QuoteBeam, they intentionally want to stay small because they have a certain lifestyle that their family, they're not in that entrepreneurial journey the same way that some people want to grow a $1 billion business. What does success look like for Masked Owl, and where are you at now in terms of, size and things like that?
So I don't have a number for how big I want it to be from number of people or sales dollars, revenue, whatever, all those things. The whole nother conversation we have is my problem with the word revenue. But I want to build a company where good people could come work and be challenged and have fun and be safe and do what they want to do. Whatever size that is and what size it is. I believe that means we're going to continually grow, because I don't think that the people that will come work here will be attracted to MOT, will be happy in a steady state.
Yeah.
Always going to try something new. We have our vision statement. Part of it includes innovation. And I have a department called Emerging Technologies. Their job, one of her KPIs is a new product every year. Doesn't mean we have to take it to market. We want, right now, at the size we are, I want a new idea of something. And like one that she's running down that we just briefly talked about today is more of an internal, I call it a product, but it would be an internal tool that we could use to help our project management team. But something, like we're always got to be trying to find a new, whatever it is. We've stood up an AI team. Right now it's 2 people, but AI is something that's out there that's coming. It's going to affect industrial automation. So let's be there. Let's see what it is. Let's understand it.
Yeah.
Even if it's nothing.
Yeah.
We need to be in front of it. I don't want to be the systems integrator. I don't know that we fit in that squarely, but I don't want to be systems integrator that's 10 years behind on AI. And my investors don't either. We were talking about it. Investors, go hire what you need, stand that team up. So we've got this young lady from, she lives in Boston. I think she went to Boston University, master's in AI, and she's brilliant. So we're working with her. We've stood up. She's got an engineer, a product manager counterpart to help keep the scientist and the brilliant mind a little grounded.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. I don't know what we're going to look like. I don't know how big is big. I don't know when done is. I don't know what success is. A group of people that are working really hard and are happy. And I don't know what that looks like 10 years from now.
I love listening to your answers because it just sounds like me talking. I'm like, I must be doing shit.
Well, I don't have a self-confidence problem very often, but there are days, back to the ownership piece, where I'm like, man, this is not the world I grew up in. Am I doing this right? So I'm glad to hear that I'm the only person thinking.
No, it really won't. I love it.
Crazy.
I'm like, don't make me answer things. Like, I don't know how big PCE is going to be. It's going to be as big as it's going to be.
Right.
And we're going to keep growing it, and we're not going to do it too fast because I don't want to kill it. But there is no, I don't know, greed, ulterior motive. Like, I need to make $1 billion. And that's probably why you actually will make $1 billion.
I hope so. Not for me, but again,
I'm rooting for you. Yeah.
There's a woman downstairs who deserves whatever reward we can give her, because she puts up with. I have a 12-year-old son who is identical to me. Like, I started programming very young. He started programming at 6. Like, he's pushing bug fixes to Reddit. No, Discord. He's talking to Discord. He's like, oh, hey, here, I found a bug. He's pushing bug. So this kid it's funny. He's like, well, I take over MOT. I'm like, oh, no, I have no, because he has worse people skills than me. At some point, he's got it often, but she puts up with it. Like, she chose to marry me. She did not choose to have another one. Like, she chose to have but not one just like me. So she's a saint. But
Aw.
so financially, that'd be great to be able to reward the people affected by these decisions in my life.
Yeah.
But yeah. I
Yes, and we would probably have a whole nother episode about this because you kind of touched on that revenue isn't everything, right? And you can have
Right.
an extremely profitable but relatively small company that is technically more successful than a huge multi-hundred person company that has,
Revenue.
you know, a lot
Yeah.
of revenue.
Massive revenue.
Yeah.
he touched on the merger that Gray Solutions went through. And I don't want to go too far into that, but I remember a very explicit conversation where you take a privately held company who is worried about cash flow
Yeah.
and merge it with a company who is held by a larger entity, Gray Solutions owned by Gray Inc. And their concern is more about return on investment, right? Gray Inc. puts money into Gray Solutions and expects a certain number to come back. Those are very different financial conversations.
Yeah.
Cash flow versus your return on investment. Neither of them really are worried about how much money you made. Like your revenue. This was an area Walker and I talked about a little bit at one point. He sold a job. It was $3 million, but it was at a 10% margin. It was all equipment. It was a bunch of servers that we were buying and selling to Curie. It was just easier for them to go through us. I'm like, but Walker, our target is higher than 10% revenue, or our ROI, our margin was higher than 10%. So you brought our margin down because 10% is lower than the target. So now we have to sell more work higher than that to hit that target. And that's why I really start thinking about, like, I tell everybody, I don't care what you sell it for. I care how much money we're going to make, how much money goes in the bank until it matters. Again, this BD guy we brought in, unlearning, he was very much wanted to set up sales targets for a sales team on revenue. Said, no, I'm not going to incentivize people to sell a $10 million project with $9.8 million worth of buyout. That doesn't help me. And in fact, it makes it worse because I got to go borrow $9.8 million worth of cash somewhere to float that,
Yeah.
or work out favorable terms with the vendor, whatever. So again, we could have a whole other conversation on my opinions on revenue and how specifically privately held companies fall down a trap by looking at that. But back to your question, we have 18 people right now.
Oh.
We are at 18 people. Like I said, we invested heavily in BD and marketing.
Yeah.
And then our emerging tech group, that's over half the company is BD, marketing, and emerging tech. Engineering is not very big. A, we could afford it, but kind of the point Ellie was making is you bring them in, A, you got to pay them, and B, one of the areas we're lagging, look, we don't have the sales dollars I want. We don't have the sales volume I would like to see. And so we can keep the engineering team we have busy.
Yep.
But if I brought in too many more, they'd start getting bored. High performers don't want to be bored.
No,
So
they do not.
yeah, and I think we alluded to this earlier. We've got some pretty exciting large projects out in bid phase.
Okay.
But people are, for whatever reason,
They're waiting for next year. They're,
we're waiting for.
yeah.
One of them, I don't know what he's waiting for. Like it's argument.
You're making
Yeah, we got to do
by
something
not
about
doing
this.
anything. Lack of
Right.
is also action. Well, this is about our time. And my not because I wouldn't want to continue. We do long episodes sometimes, but my laptop is literally about to shut down here in a few minutes. So I think it's time for our wrap up question, which is, what should we see? If there's anything that we should be looking forward to seeing from Mast Owl Technologies, and where can people follow you and or reach out to you guys if they're interested in maybe working for you or collaborate on projects, or if they're a potential customer, where should people go to find all things Alex Poole and Mast Owl Technologies?
Well, obviously, the first one is, I will come back to answer the first part of that question last.
Sorry, I have a lot of compound questions.
Yes. www.mastowtechnologies.com. That's our website. One of the things you can be looking for, we are doing a revamp on the website. We rolled that out. The existing one's fine. No heartburn with it. But we're rolling out a new one hopefully the end of the year, maybe early next year. Marketing's been working really hard, slightly modifying our messaging a little bit. That's the first place. LinkedIn's an easy place to find us. Mastodon Technologies, Alex Poole, Noe, Pool. Reach me there. That's the easy places to reach me. We do have booths at a lot of shows, but they're not the automation shows. Typically, we're doing a booth at food and beverage. Right now, that's the vertical.
Okay.
We just talked about one of the like verticals, but we are targeting. Marketing needs some place to focus.
Yeah,
so we're
unfortunately,
targeting.
you can't be in all the places all at the same time. So
pick one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we will have some booths at some food and beverage shows in 2025. In fact, I think the target is one a month.
All right.
Now, the exciting things that are coming, we do have some products, some ways for recurring revenue, which is a problem with most product-based businesses. So, and I don't want to talk too much about them yet but the target is for a beta by the end of this year. And then early next year, Emerging Tech will be rolling out some products, a specific product related to AI and how it can help the industrial automation space.
That's really exciting. I would love to potentially have your AI expert on sometime, either as a standalone episode or maybe part of a panel, because I think you might be time for us to do a panel on AI. It's not, I don't like to talk about hype stuff, things that don't have real applications, things that people aren't really doing. But Brandon Peters from Shockwave Automation has also been working on something with one of his customers, AI application. So we could probably pull now enough people from our network that have real experiences, real stories to share that we'd love to do something like that. So we will definitely be paying attention to your updates. We'd love to do an update with you guys. And I'm a big fan of Mastodon and everything that you've said today. So really appreciate you spending the time with us. I think our audience is going to love this. A lot of great tidbits as well. We do have a lot of kind of small business owners or people that are, have thought about going out on their own. And I love to get them the real kind of war stories. And, not just the shiny, but it is, for some people, it's kind of inevitable. And it really is what, kind of keeps your curiosity going and can answer that why for you. But like you've, shown us, there's also seasons to that, right? It doesn't mean it has to be right now. Yeah. So that is all I have to say. Allie, any parting words or questions?
No, it's great to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being a part of our community, and we look forward to seeing you around more often.
Awesome. I appreciate it. It was a great time. I really enjoyed this last time, so thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you next time. Bye.